Now it's time for the Voice for the Industry podcast.
Hey, Bryn, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. We had a very interesting conversation with Jennifer Miller. She did a great job of helping people understand, helping me understand, how you transform your company from being the owner and managing it and running it to developing a company that you really don't need to be directly involved in. And it's a very interesting journey they took, her and her husband. And it's a journey that most pest control operators want to be able to make at some point. So I think it's going to be a fascinating episode. Really excited for people to hear it.
Yeah, no, it was really fascinating for me just to listen to a female be in a family business. One, I feel like you don't really see that many family businesses because families are tough to work with. But it was really true. Inspiring just to hear from her about how they started from almost nothing to a successful company where now she doesn't have to do a lot. So it was really, really inspiring to listen to.
Yeah. And she's doing a lot of other things. But yes, I want to make sure she doesn't get mad at us, but she is doing a lot of other things. And she is still involved, but she's not in the day-to-day. So, all right, well, that's great. Well, all right, everybody, you're going to love this episode. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of the Voice for the Industry podcast. Very excited to let you know that we have our guest is Jennifer Miller. Jennifer is the co-owner of Miller Pest Solutions, a second-generation family business originally founded in 2001. So 25th anniversary, right?
Yeah.
How about that? She has been in the business through 2014, starting in-person inspection sales and working her way up through operations and HR into executive leadership, including serving as COO before stepping into ownership in 2023. During that time, Jennifer helped grow the company from $500,000 to over $5 million in revenue as the business expanded into multiple markets and implemented EOS to bring structure and accountability to the organization. Her experience spans both the field and the office, from driving revenue to building the teams and systems required to support growth. Today, she focuses on vision, leadership, and long-term direction at the ownership level. Well, welcome. It's great to have you here.
So good to be here, Raymond. Thanks for having me.
Good to have you. Well, we know each other through a peer group, the Associated Group, and so I'm glad you're able to take time out. I know you're a busy person. I know you do a lot of different events, and you're on the road a lot doing different things besides just running the business as well. So it's great to have you here, and I'm excited to talk to you about a few things.
Yeah, you too.
All right. Let's get started then. So everybody knows that you're part owner of a pest control business, and just kind of give us your history of where you come from, how'd you get into the business, how it kind of all started, how you got exposed to the pest industry.
So yeah, I got into the business back in 2014 in sort of a transitionary period that I was in. At the time, my boyfriend, now husband, Joel, who you know, was working in the family business. And we both saw an opportunity in what his dad had started back in 2001. And as you had already said, I came in through sales. So I was out in the field. I was doing the face-to-face inspections with our customers, which was probably one of the best things that I probably could have done, just because it gave me a direct understanding of what our customers actually needed. And then from there, I just naturally grew into the business, and we started figuring things out and really just building from the ground up.
Yeah, I think it's really, for me, it's good to hear that you started in the field. A lot of owners, especially generational owners, right? They don't start in the business. They start, kind of at the top of the business, and don't always have that perspective you're talking about, where you really know what your customers want, need, how to make sure they get the best results for them. And I think that makes a big difference once you get to the ownership level. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah. All right. Well, so you've got it through sales, and then you worked your way up. But tell us a little bit about working in a family business. A lot of pest control businesses are family businesses.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a few different owners on here, and everybody's a little bit different. So what's your experience working in a family business? What are some of the things you enjoy about it? Maybe what are some of the things that, aren't the most fun part of the business, being in a family business?
Right. Yeah. I meet a lot of people, like you were saying, that work in a family business or even work with a spouse. I would say the biggest thing that we really learned was how to separate the roles from the relationship. Because early on, it was really difficult for us to do that. As spouses now, there was a lot of overlap. And without having those clearly defined responsibilities, it's easy to step on each other without even realizing it. What really changed it for us was just getting clear on our own strengths, who owned what, and just kind of how we made decisions. Once we understood how we naturally owned that, that was what allowed us to work together a lot more effectively. So the other big lesson was really creating boundaries from between work and home, because in the early years, there was no separation for us.
Mm.
We were loving doing the work that we did. We were super hyper vigilant. And so the business really came home constantly with us. But as we've grown, we've just been able to become more intentional about protecting that space. Because if you don't, the business can easily consume the relationship. So that's kind of my experience. At the end of the day, whether you're working with somebody in the family or a spouse, it can also be an advantage, but only if there's clarity built in there, trust, and just mutual respect for each other's roles.
Yeah, no, I don't work. My fiance and I don't work together, but we both work from home. So we, she's in the other room. We both have our own little office. So, but I don't know. I think it'd be very tough for me to work with my significant other, or even some of my family members. I think I applaud couples like you that can make it work, because I know there are families where there's a lot of friction and they really can't work together, and some of them have to go do something else and things like that. So I
Yeah.
think that's that's
I can't
admirable.
it was easy.
Yeah, I'm sure there's been moments. So in your bio, I mentioned that you grew the company from $500,000 to 5 million in a relatively short period of time, and that's a not easy thing to do in the pest control industry, especially these days. So tell us a little about what got how'd you get there? Did you make any big changes? Did you redefine your vision, or was it just a lot of hard work? And just give us an idea how you were able to do that in a relatively short period of time.
Sure. So just to kind of paint a picture back in 2014 when I started, we were growing early on, but it was pure chaos. It was so chaotic. There was no structure. We were literally flying by the seat of our pants, and we didn't have the capital to just go and hire roles. So Joel and I, just like a lot of small businesses do, were wearing multiple hats. For us, it really was EOS. It was the biggest game changer for us. And we self-implemented that back in 2019. So it was about 4 to 5 years after I started. And what it gave us is it gave us more clarity, accountability, and just repeatable processes. Once it was implemented, that's when growth started to become more predictable instead of reactive. So it was really a shift from pure chaos to more consistency. And it was, again, the biggest lever for us in terms of structure that it brought in. Joel is naturally, if you know anything about EOS terms, visionary. He is textbook visionary. He's got multiple ideas. He wants to continue to maximize, our efforts. And for me, I just naturally took on more of the integrator seat because I value structure and strategy. So that was a nice balance, that we were very different in that sense. And I like to say that most businesses don't actually have a growth problem. Small businesses, they have a structure problem.
I think that's pretty accurate. Yeah, it's not so hard to get the new business, but it's hard to implement it, keep it, make it, keep it going. Well, tell us, what is EOS? What is it? Kind of give us an idea of how it works and those kind of things.
Yeah. So EOS, it stands for the Entrepreneurial Operating System. And so they have a structure that basically you install into your business. And the EOS really brought that structure in for us. I used to joke a lot of time with Joel because prior to Miller, I came from a lot of structure. So without having that, my system was just a wreck. I
Right.
used to joke with him that I could not see the light at the end of the tunnel because it just felt like the walls were closing in on me every single day. So but before we had EOS, the effort was there. There was no question about it. We just didn't have alignment. And that's what EOS brought into the business. It brought in structure, vision that you mentioned earlier, accountability, and just a consistent rhythm for execution. It also helped us clarify roles, helped us stay focused on the right priorities, and it just created accountability across the entire organization, including ourselves as leaders. So that was really the turning point from operating like a small business to building more of a scalable company.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So kind of like a blueprint, really, right? Just kind of
Mhm.
follow this blueprint and do the things, and it makes a big difference. It sounds really interesting. I think everybody out there, check out EOS because there's a couple people I know recently that have had really, really good results with it. So that's fantastic.
It was actually some
Uh,
industry, Raymond, that introduced it to us. And once I read the book, I read it and I'm just like, this is what we need. And so we just took it and ran with it. And I believe the size of the companies that it looks at is between 10 to 200 is like that sweet spot for companies that need to bring in more structure and accountability and just have that alignment.
and that, that's what a lot of companies never quite do. They never, you get a lot of smaller companies out there that are, like you said, they work hard, they're doing pretty well, but they can never get to that next level. And it sounds like that's a great process to use to get there. Another thing that you guys did is you expanded into multiple markets, right? And so how did that impact the way you were running the business? And then how did what did you guys have to do differently once you made the decision? Okay, we're going to go into multiple markets, because that's a big transition in the way you run your business, right?
Yeah, and that was also a very visionary thing for my husband to do is to expand in multiple markets because it really wasn't perfectly planned. It was more opportunistic. We had strong people in the right places, and one of our top performers actually moved out to Omaha, and he was
Okay.
the one that helped us open the market out there. And in Kansas City, there was someone within the industry that had industry experience and knowledge, and they wanted to come on and help us build out in Kansas City. And what that did was it forced us to get disciplined quickly. Because
Right.
when you expand that way, you do not have the luxury of perfecting systems. You have to build them as you go. And that's what really pushed us to standardize our processes, really strengthen our leadership and create accountability across markets. And I do want to caveat by saying I wouldn't say it's the way most companies should expand, but it is what forced us to build the structure we have today.
And so where's your home base?
In right outside of Des Moines, so Clive, Iowa.
Oh, okay. All
Off
right.
Des
So
Moines.
you're in Iowa, then you opened up in Omaha and in Kansas City.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Those aren't necessarily real close to each other, are they?
They kind of make a triangle a little bit. So Omaha is about 2 hours from us,
Oh,
and
okay. It's not
you
bad.
go south, you've got Kansas City, which is maybe 2.5, 3 hours.
Okay, that's not bad then. That's
No,
not too bad. Yeah. So
no.
you can drive there in a day. You can make a day trip.
Oh yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes a big difference. You guys expanded pretty rapidly. You grew rapidly with this EOS kind of focus. Then you went to multi-market. So how did you build your teams and continue to grow them and keep everybody kind of aligned without overdoing it, right? Because it sounds like you had this key employee over here, this key employee over here. So what are some of the things you guys do to keep, I guess, employees focused and not kind of burning out and trying to take on too much, and kind of keep everybody systematic, I guess is the best way to put it.
Yes, that is very important to be focused on, especially in today's time. And it's a really interesting question because honestly, what I learned most during that process was really about myself as a leader. As we were growing, I was working incredibly hard just to stay connected to the team, supporting everyone and preventing problems before they happened. But what I didn't realize at the time was that I was carrying way too much of that responsibility myself. And when expectations are unclear, accountability isn't defined, leaders often compensate by overextending themselves. And that's exactly what I was doing. And that also is what leads to burnout. What ultimately changed things for us was getting the right people in the right seats and truly giving them ownership. Once people had clear expectations, accountability, and just those roles aligned to their strengths, performance improved and burnout starts to decrease, not just for me, but across the entire organization. So that was a huge leadership shift for me, realizing that sustainable growth doesn't come from just one person carrying everything. It comes from building a team that can truly own the business alongside you.
Yeah, and I think that's another thing that's tough for a lot of owners to do is kind of let go of the reins a little bit and trust other people to run that business that's so near and dear to them. And but then by the same token, if you don't do that, you can never step away. You can never go to a conference and all that kind of stuff because you're the center of the wheel, and everybody revolve around you. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's there's a lot of things that it's difficult to do, and I've seen that as well. It's really hard to kind of just step back, and I think as you guys are a great example, the companies that are able to do that are the ones that, like you said, grow a successful, ongoing, ever increasing business, as opposed to just kind of hovering kind of the same size for a long, long time. All right, so how important? You mentioned visionary. Your husband's visionary, and you're more of the get it done, right? He's right, kind of. So how important is it for owners to think, to take the time and think about the business and to contemplate what can you do and how you can do it, and to really get away from that, like you said earlier, just being stuck in the day to day. I mean, we know it's important, but what are some of the things owners can do to kind of allow themselves to do that?
Yeah, it can be difficult, especially when you're growing. You're building a growing business. But I think it's absolutely vital. If owners stay trapped in the day to day for too long, the business eventually stops growing because nobody is thinking ahead. It's critical for both the health of the organization and the wellness of the owner to be able to step out of today's problems and focus on where the company is going long term. One of the biggest reasons we were able to grow the way we did over the last decade is because we did have a clear vision on where we were headed. We weren't just looking at today. We were looking 3 years out, 10 years out, and really building toward that future intentionally. We're not just looking at the organizational chart and what it looks like today. We're looking at what it looks like 3 years from now so that our employees can even just envision themselves and where they could be and grow as the company grows. And it really changes how you hire, how you develop leaders, and just how you structure the business overall. And I would say EOS and the coaches that we've hired over the years that we've worked with, have really helped us elevate our thinking around that. Every year, during our annual planning, we continue refining the vision. So our team understands not just what we're doing today, but what we're growing into. And that long-term thinking creates alignment, it creates momentum, and it creates that clarity across the entire organization.
Well, that's really impressive because I hadn't thought about that before, but it's kind of like if you want to go from here to there, you have to build a bridge, right? But if you don't know where the bridge needs to go, how do you do it? So, I've certainly heard of and been involved in companies that had like a 5-year plan, right? And that kind of stuff. But I think a lot of companies don't, like you said, they don't. If I want to be at this size and be able to do this in 3 years, what do I have to do today, right, to start that journey to get there? And it sounds like you guys have made a lot of really good decisions, and obviously your business is very successful, growing rapidly, and then you've expanded into multiple markets. So kind of a great, we talked about blueprint earlier. I think you guys have a really good blueprint for success, and I appreciate you coming on here and kind of sharing some of the things you've done. One other thing I did want to talk about is women in the pest control industry. There's not that many of them. There's more and more. And I was at the MPMA Women's Forum last week, and it was over 200 something people, and they were vast majority are women. But overall, it's still a pretty male demographic industry.
I do. I want more women because Dominique has done such a fantastic job.
Yeah.
bringing in women, I hear it. I didn't really know, as I started getting more involved, I just thought that that was something that obviously was growing, but I didn't know Dominique was the big lever
Right.
for really growing and promoting more women to get into the industry. And we have a couple of female techs, but I know that there's some other businesses out there that do a phenomenal job on
Yeah.
recruiting and bringing on women techs. And women techs are, they're probably some of the best techs that
Uh,
a company could
yeah.
have.
Yeah. I think even today we can say things like, I think there are some general traits that women have that make them very good technicians, right?
Yeah.
I think that's a big area in the industry, needs to work on. And because, the whole pest control thing is kind of like, ooh, dead bugs and all that, and I
Yeah.
think so that's why you have a lot of women are in the marketing side of the business and, the leadership, but you don't have as many out in the field doing the work. And I think
Right.
there's no reason not to, because like you said, there's a lot of other industries, women out in the field doing a lot of really good things. And so, but
There's
I just,
They pay attention to detail.
yeah,
They're great, they're good communicators and relate
yeah,
to the
yeah,
the home buyer, right? So we look
right.
at our target market as like female. And so what better way for a female to feel comfortable with a technician coming in their home that really is the expert and just makes them automatically feel
Yeah,
safe.
no, I completely agree. And I think the more we see the women coming into the technical side, the field side, that's even just going to make everything so much better. But
Yeah.
all right. Well, I think that's it. I think we got through all of our questions. Was there anything else you wanted to share that maybe I didn't bring up or anything that we didn't talk about? It's okay if not, but I just want to give you the final, you're the guest of honor, give you the start of the show, give you the final chance to talk about something.
Yeah, yeah. We kind of touched on a little bit earlier when you were talking about burnout, because one topic that I'm becoming more and more passionate about is just that that leadership identity shift required for growth. I think a lot of founders and leaders don't realize that what helped them build the business initially can become the very thing limiting the company. And I learned that personally through burnout and over involvement and just feeling like I personally needed to be deeply connected to everything in order for the
Right.
business to succeed. And what I realized was that the business needed a different version of me as it evolved. Because there's a major shift that has to happen from being the doer, kind of like you were talking about me being the
Right.
executor, because that's totally in my blood, to actually building leaders structure and that accountability around you. So when you really stop to think about what's holding a company back, a lot of times it's not strategy. It's the leadership capacity of the organization, including the owner. We're not immune to it. And I hear it a lot in the industry because people say businesses outgrow people. And I think that there's truth to that.
Yeah.
What gets a company from 5 million usually isn't what gets it to 10 million. And the same is true internally for leaders. We have to continuously evolve ourselves alongside the business. And that mindset completely changed how I lead today. Instead of asking, how do I do more? I'm asking, who do I need to become for the next version of the company?
Oh, that's a great perspective. I've had somebody put it that way, and it makes perfect sense. You're right. What it takes to get you to a 500,000 isn't necessarily what it's going to take to get you to the next, the 5 million, and so on and so forth. And
We need to get out.
I think that's a great
We need
point to
to get
make.
out of the way.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great point to make. All right, well, that was great. So, I got a couple questions here, and I'm going to ask it. Uh, you're the star of the show, Jennifer? Would you like to answer first, or would you like to hear Brent answer
Let
first?
me hear Bren answer.
Okay. All right. Notice there wasn't an option of me answering first. Just I am the host. So here we go. All right. If you were forced to wear one Halloween costume every day for a year, what would it be? I'll answer it first. I already have an answer. Give you a little longer to think about it. I would wear a pirate costume because that's just so fun to be a pirate, right? Every day you get to be a pirate for a year, and I think it's a fun costume to wear. So that's my answer. I'd be a pirate.
That's so funny. My 4-year-old requested a pirate-themed birthday party. So,
Oh, that's funny. Yeah,
yeah.
pirates are fun. Yeah, I mean, not the real ones, not the real ones, but
They would have been the
you
star of
know,
the show.
yeah, the Johnny Depp version of pirates is a lot of fun. We'll put it that way. All right, Brent, now you got to answer.
I would probably say this is from one of my childhood costumes. It was an orca whale, like literally a full-size orca
Really?
stuffed animal, and it was the comfiest thing ever.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Now the guest of honor has to answer.
Oh, right when you asked this question, Raymond, Wonder Woman popped in my head. I've never dressed up as Wonder Woman ever, but I'm like, you want to know what? It's a good color scheme.
I mean, you've got the hair for Wonder Woman, right? Doesn't Wonder Woman's always had dark hair, right? I'm pretty sure. So I think that might be a good fit. Yeah.
You get comfortable in it for a year.
Yeah. You wear the bracelets. All right. Another question. If nutrition didn't matter, right? If nutrition didn't matter, what food would you gladly eat every day? Like if it wasn't a health thing, you could eat whatever you want. It wouldn't affect you in a negative way. What would it be?
Chocolate.
Chocolate.
All sorts of chocolate.
I was going to say all different forms of chocolate.
Farms, sundaes, with fudge on it.
Yum. Yeah, hot fudge sundae. That sounds
candy
good.
Bars, caramel covered chocolate. I mean, you name it. Chocolate
covered pretzels. There's a lot of bacon, chocolate covered bacon. That's pretty good too. All right. Bryn, what about you?
I mean, I do this every day, even though I should care about nutrition, but mac and cheese.
Mac and cheese is a good choice. Yeah, that's a tough one. That's good. I think I would probably go with pizza. I think I could eat pizza every day. I really like pizza. And all its different forms. Flatbread. I'm not a big, super thick, like Chicago style, with its like crust, but yeah, I think I'd go with pizza. And there's a lot of varieties of pizza that you can kind of like use with all your different chocolate. You can have chocolate ice cream one day and you can have chocolate cake the next day. So that's kind of like, but anyway. All right. Well, this has been a lot of fun. Jen, thank you so much. I'm really glad we were able to get this worked out. It's been great. We really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah. Awesome.
Thank you for joining us.
See you next time.